Another huge setback tonight for President Obama's Syria policy. The U.S. has broken off talks with Russia after being unable to convince Moscow to stop bombing civilians in the key city of Aleppo. Correspondent Kevin Corke has that story tonight from the White House.
Collapsed. That's what happened today to U.S.-Russia talks aimed at ending the violence in Syria.
What's clear is that there is nothing more for the United States and Russia to talk about with regard to trying to reach an agreement that would reduce the violence inside of Syria. And that's tragic.
Tragic and a strategic failure for President Obama, who told New York Magazine that he steadfastly has sought Russian cooperation to end the 5.5-year-old civil war in Syria to no avail, and comes as Russian President Vladimir Putin announced the suspension of a treaty with Washington on cleaning up weapons-grade plutonium, a move that makes clear Putin is willing to use nuclear disarmament as a new bargaining chip in his disputes over Ukraine and Syria.
This was a reasonable, thought-through strategy for applying pressure to the Assad regime in pursuit of the aims that we were seeking to achieve. We're going to have to pursue an alternative approach.
Russia's alleged use of bunker-busting bombs, like the ones that leveled a hospital yesterday in Aleppo, offers inescapable clarity that the Kremlin is unfazed by Washington's complaints and sanctions. The country's foreign ministry spokeswoman even suggested that any U.S. attacks on Russian-backed Syrian forces, quote, will lead to terrible tectonic consequences, not only on the territory of this country, but also in the region on the whole. Experts think the Russians make such provocative statements because they believe President Obama either can't or won't do anything to stop them.
Putin is psychologically in the head of the president, and he has convinced him that any escalation by the president, other than rhetoric, will lead to adverse consequences, when the truth is, most of the time, Putin is bluffing.
Also tonight, Brett, we learned that the Russians have deployed the SA-23 anti-aircraft, anti-missile system in Syria, and that's noteworthy because it's the first time they've deployed that type of system outside of their own country, Brett.
Kevin, that interview the president gave to New York Magazine, President Obama admitting that his signature health care law has, quote, real problems. You know, we've covered a lot of them, but what else do you say there, Kevin?
Well, listen, he said a couple things that I think will probably strike you as obvious, which is, yes, there's gridlock here in Washington. Political polarization is one of the main reasons he says there's a problem with Obamacare. But he goes on to not really point out the fact that there's some staggering numbers here, Brett. Let me just give you a few. There are 4 states now that have single insurance exchanges. 4. Alabama, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Wyoming. Just 1 each. And I should tell you that in the state of Minnesota, rates for some folks could rise by as much as 67% next year. That's staggering, to say the least. All this, of course, 28 days ahead of the open enrollment period, which begins just before the election, Brett.
Kevin Corke, live on the North Lawn. Kevin, thank you.